Hey everyone, welcome to the first episode of Kundalini Rising. This is a new series that I'm implementing, paying homage to Lilith, the black snake that slithers up our spine and ignites all of our chakras. Today I have a very special guest who has been with me since I pretty much found community, and her name is Jess Walker. You want to say hi, Jess?
Hello, everybody. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for asking me to do this.
I am so excited to have you. Our conversations are always riveting, and your awakening is one that everybody's is for the books, you know what I mean? But yours is one that has battled so many different elements and that you've come through. And we've talked at our lowest points and we've talked at really high points. And I know that we're still climbing mountains and we're still dipping into the valleys and everything else. I really just wanted to get your take on this Kundalini because you're someone that is so vocal and descriptive in your awakening. And so I think anybody is going to really, number one, be able to relate and take something away from your journey, as well as get some insight into your beautiful artwork and your own services that you offer, because they're mind-blowing every time. So
Thank you.
of course, of
Making
course.
me blush.
Good. You deserve it. Feel that power. So, how we've done this podcast at this point in time is we've kind of framed it. So I'm basically have questions that Jess and I have talked about beforehand, and we're going to go through them. And she's got some really powerful answers for every single one that I have not got to hear yet. So we're all going to hear them for the first time together. So, throughout this episode, if you're on the YouTube channel, you'll see some, art. It's going to be Jess's art throughout her branding, her art, basically we're going to be promoting her. So that way you can see firsthand everything that she can offer you as an individual and as well as the collective community, shadow working classes, art, readings, things like that. So if you see those come across your screen, enjoy them, take down those dates and get in touch with her, follow her on her TikTok and her Instagram, reach out to her even if you have some questions that you want to delve into some good conversation with her. On the podcast channels, on Spotify and on iTunes, I'm sorry you're going to miss out on those, but you can always jump onto the YouTube channel at Hermetically Speaking and find this episode. It will be episode number 1 of Kundalini Rising. All right, Jess, you ready to jump into some questions?
I am ready.
Yay, I'm excited. Oh, got chills. All right. So number 1, when and how did the Kundalini ignite within you?
All right. So we are just going to jump right into the deep end because my awakening was a spontaneous awakening. Let's see, October 2018, I was asked to stop working. I had so much anxiety, so much just like I was feeling energy, but I didn't realize that I was feeling energy. I was in that group of people where in 2018, like everyone's gifts were amped right up to like 10,000. So every time I left my house, I was like feeling all of this energy and I couldn't handle it. I didn't know how to handle it. I had no way to channel it. I didn't know about energetic boundaries, nothing. So everything was just hitting me. And if anybody knows me, like I'm quite an intuitive person, I can tap into about any of the clairs. And so try going to work at a place like Lowe's where there's fluorescent lights beaming down at you and about 2,000 customers a day going through the till. And about 4 hours into work, you're now crying because of a breakup, but you're single. And you're really upset because a grandparent passed away, but your only living grandparents are pretty healthy. And, you have no idea what's going on. I literally felt like I was losing my mind. And so I had stopped work and went to seek psychiatric care. Under the psychiatric care, I was highly over-medicated. I was on 15 different medications a day, sleeping 19 plus hours a day, and really unable to live life. And because anytime I would leave the house, I would still feel all of this energy. The medication wasn't working. And so the psychiatrist was like, let's up your medication. And I'm like, but I'm sleeping 19 hours a day. Well, let's up your medication. It's not working. so I can sleep 24 hours a day. You're right. I probably won't be anxious then. So I ended up firing him. And in December of 2019, I was probably at like my lowest of my lows. I had to go and stay in a facility overnight because I was like ready to not be here anymore. And staying in that facility like made me realize that all I wanted to do was get home to my cats. And so my cats quite literally saved my life because all I wanted to do was be around my babies. I was still agoraphobic. I was still like really not able to leave my house. I was still suffering with a lot of anxiety. And my stepmom told me about this podcast, Soberish, and said, I think you would like this. I binge listened to 4 seasons in about 3 weeks.
I think that's everybody when they find her.
Right? It was mid-January 2020, and I just finished listening to an episode. I'm sorry if I cry. And I looked up.
I'm already watery eyed, so please, I'm feeling it too.
I looked up, and my mom. So sorry.
No,
My
never
mom, who had
apologize.
passed away several years before, was sitting at my kitchen table. She did not look like herself here on earth, but I knew it was my mom. I'm like, Mom, like, what are you doing here? And she's like, we have a lot to talk about. And I'm like, can we start with what you're doing in my kitchen? And so she told me a lot of things about my journey in the collective. And it was literally like that Kesha song, Praying, where she's talking about how she watched her life play backwards and forwards. And I literally watched everything that had hurt me, that had made me feel small, that had made me feel like I had no power, and that made me feel like I wanted to give up, play out in my life to allow me to realize my role. And my role is to be a voice for people, to be a mirror for people, to be a shadow worker for people, and to be able to understand wholeheartedly to the people that I work with what you went through. Because I had a really difficult life.
I know you have. And you are just a representation of strength in the collective.
And I'm just
And you
going to
give
cry
other
the whole
people
podcast, so good luck, guys.
Just get it out. It's purge season, right? It's raining out.
And I'm a Cancer rising, and Cancer season's like right around the corner, and we just had that massive new moon. So like, good luck. Good luck.
I mean, it's raining here today, so I'm already, yes, I don't have a box of tissues beside me, but it's okay. If they start streaming, I'm gonna catch them.
I know, right? I was like, why didn't I get tissues down here? Oh, look, I have shop towel. How cool is that?
There you go. Anything will work. Anything.
Oh, guys. So yeah, I saw my mom during that time of my mom sitting at my kitchen table. She told me that she had to pass away when she did because she had work to do on the other side to come back and be my guide for the rest of my journey. And she is literally somebody who walks beside me. She's sitting beside me right now. I can feel her energy around me. And she is always, always there. And that was really like the first moment of my awakening and starting my journey of Kundalini, because I started to get into meditation at that point by instruction of my mom and my other guides. Just some really incredible things when you start leaning into this energy. And yeah, I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, no, it sounds like, like you started flowing with the Kundalini instead of resisting it, because that's a big thing at first, is, you know what I mean? Like that resisting, like it's not even, intentional resisting. It's just we don't know what to do. Our programming and our patternization are knocked like through the roof, and try to still implement into a whole new almost being or paradigm that it can't exist anymore. And so, yeah, like the flow with it, the fact that your mom came, that is just like a hallelujah moment, is what I wanted to say. Which, you know what I mean? Like, just, and your mom's energy, by the way, when you were saying she's right beside you, it just felt so soft and so just like, purifying. Like, of course she would, it
I love that
explains
you
so
say that
much.
too, because here on Earth, she was like the opposite.
I was
It was
wondering that.
we had a very long conversation at the kitchen table too about like her role to play in my life growing up, and she cried and cried and cried and was like, I'm so sorry that I had to do that to you. And she was like, first, like, my programming made it so that I could only parent you in a certain way,
The
and that way
closure,
was so that you could break all of the cycles of generational trauma.
yes, the closure that we can find in the spirit realm is just unbeknownst to us. Even like if the rest of society could get with like every single person that has passed, and it's not even every single person, but every person that they feel that they still need some type of closure with. But anyways, I don't want to go down too many rabbit holes. I want to stay on track and keep us headstrong forward. So the next question is, did you notice your awakening prior to the Kundalini energy unfolding within and around you? Or was this like it just was so abrupt that it was the Kundalini that like sparked everything?
It literally was that. It was so spontaneous that after waking up, which is, I think, another one of your questions, after waking up, I realized like my entire life, I was like, oh, I've been connected.
Yes. Yes. It's like in retrospect, it's like, holy crap, holy crap, holy crap. Like another layer, another layer, another layer. Yes, absolutely. Yes. Okay. What helped you recognize the Kundalini's transformation and that it was in fact Kundalini energy? Because, we have so many different energies working for us. So many people call it different things. And the Kundalini is very Kundalini. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you don't really mistake it when you know it, and it does show up differently for different people because we all have our own unique experience. We're all calibrated to our own DNA and to our own vibration that ultimately leads us into that final destiny of being one. But on the journey to it, we have all these unique experiences. So how was that that recognition for you?
Well, I had kind of touched on before about how like it was like mental illness that led me to soberish, that then led me to like my awakening journey. And of course, after a spontaneous awakening, and you're going, oh, so like the anxiety that I have claimed my entire life by saying my anxiety, my depression, ugh,
Yes.
does not feel good. The anxiety that I had been feeling bombard my body for forever was not even mine.
Uh, I just got chills all over. Like that was like,
Spontaneous awakening. And so then I'm still dealing with the fact that I was still on medication at this point, still taking 15 medications. Very
Jesus.
first thing, and this is not for everyone. I want to stress this so wholeheartedly. Do not just up and stop your medication. My guides were very adamant on the fact that it was the wrong medication for me. And so I started to wean myself off of medication after firing my psychiatrist. And the more I got off medication and the more I started listening to how I needed to meditate and journal and, do these things that scare me, like go outside, but do so by putting energetic boundaries around me, I watched my entire life shift. I literally watched like the mental illness peel off of my body and I like became a new person. I could go outside. I love to go walking in trees and like listening to the birds, and I couldn't do that before. I couldn't even stand in my backyard without sweating and having heart palpitations. A fully fenced backyard. Nobody could even see me. And as soon as I went outside, I was like dying. And that was no longer the case. So I became a nature lover. Um, I started to look different. I didn't look unhealthy. Like my skin was almost gray and I looked old and decrepit, and I was, in my 20s still. And now I'm 33 and I get carded when I tried to buy a lottery ticket so I could have bus change because they didn't have an ATM. So I was like, why not just take chance on the lottery, right? And
Of
so
course.
I went
Yeah.
to buy a lottery
Anytime.
ticket, and the guy was like, can I see your ID? And I was like, listen, I'm 33. If you think I look 17, here it is, boo. Like, so, my physicality started to change. Like I noticed like my body was stronger. Like I felt stronger. I wanted to be more active. I didn't want to just like sit around all the time. And I noticed that what I had equated as anxiety still was in my body, but in a different way, because even now you can see I'm vibrating.
Yes.
I am
Yep.
vibrating because I feel spirit's energy. And if in my mind I equate that excitement, that flow of energy with anxiety, it will become so. And again, I'm not stating that anxiety is not a real thing, because it is for so many.
No,
But
of
when
course not.
I
Yeah.
discovered that I could energetically put up boundaries, I stopped feeling anxiety so hard. And I started to realize that the energy that I'm feeling in my body can be excitement and not fear. And when I say can be, like they feel so similar that it's up to me to say, I'm excited in this moment, not I'm afraid.
Yes, like directing your own energy. It's
Mm-hmm.
creating. It's the alchemy of creation. And you're
Yeah.
so right to point that out. I mean, there is a big difference between the two, and it's that whole like what is mine, or what is for me, or what is against me, and that kind of concept. And if we have that victim mentality of, this is happening to me. Anxiety is happening to me. My anxiety, you know what I mean? Like that identity crisis where you make it a part of your being. Anxiety is its own entity that we call in or recreate within us as a protective measure, and we give it life. We literally breathe life into it because we need it. There comes a time when you have to understand that it's not who you are. Who
It
you
literally was
are
my
is,
entire identity.
yes, and that's
There's something else that's coming to mind that is also very like prominent in like this shift between like anxiety and Kundalini energy, because Kundalini is so powerful and it is so visceral in my body. I don't know how it feels in other people's bodies because I'm not in there, but it's so visceral in my body that it's very, very easy to have been like, wow, like, was I just feeling energy my entire life, or was it always anxiety? And I've gotten to a point in my life where I have learned energetic boundaries so much that the only energy that I feel in my body is mine. And so I get to state what the energy in my body is, whether or not I have high energy, whether or not I have low energy, but I no longer equate the two with having anxiety.
beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And I'm sure your shadow working course really helps hone into this kind of stuff. So if anybody's interested in learning these types of methods and being able to utilize them for not just, your own good, the greater good, whatever it is, whatever your motivation be at the moment, take full advantage of that, and definitely look into one of her shadow working courses. Did you have more on that question? I didn't want to jump into the
Oh,
next. Where are we at on
we
that?
can go into the next one.
Okay. There is a uniqueness about each of our journeys. I really love this question. What do you feel yours is?
Are you ready to get some more like woo stuff?
Oh, always, always.
So, like I had said, after my awakening, I looked back on my life and realized like how connected I was. And I think that my uniqueness is my connection. I had a reading with Karen Rontowski who equated me to being an astral
Whoop, whoop.
bridge, that
We'll
it is
do
like the
it.
chakras, that my roots are connected on earth and my mind is up in the astral, which
Ah,
is part of why I can channel artwork and speak light language and write light language, and all the rest of that stuff, because it's just been part of my journey throughout my whole life. I have, even prior to my awakening, had more than 24 paranormal experiences.
so when you say paranormal, just to clarify, are we talking aliens? Are we talking supernatural? Are you talking demonology like Karen
So
Rontowski?
supernatural, I would say.
Okay.
I have definitely been followed by the spirit realm my entire life.
Very
I
nice.
did not realize how many guides I had watching over me my entire life until I woke up and realized that I pretty well have had beings standing in my room since the day I was born.
So you're like just a raw medium is like
Yeah.
what I is how is what's coming to
My
mind.
grandma
Like
wrote
it's
me a letter. Actually, I talk about that at some point, but she wrote me a letter in which she told me that she used to come into my room and I'd be singing to the ceiling. And she'd be like, "Who are you singing to?" And I'm like, "Them." And she's like, "Who are
oh,
them?" And I'm like, "The angels."
chills. How beautiful. How perfect. You know what I mean? Like just those are the things
Ever
that our
since,
childhood need to be filled with. Like those are the
right?
stories, not the, you know what I mean?
Oh,
Society, please.
I have a lot of them, and I do go into that further in one of the. I actually
One
think it's the next one in retrospect as we awaken further. That one, yeah. So I will get to it for all those who are
perfect.
listening. But some of the other uniquenesses in my journey have been me as a mirror, and I didn't know that. I didn't know what that meant, especially as a shadow worker. And when you're a mirror, like a lot of the times, like random strangers will come up to you and divulge all of their personal trauma and information. Ugh, here it is. And you're just standing there at the grocery store, like, can I buy my cucumber? Like,
Energetic boundaries, energetic boundaries. Like,
and before I had energetic boundaries, before I set my intention, before I left the house, as a 7-year-old, I remember someone telling me about the divorce that they were going through. And my mom is sitting there going, "Why are you telling my kid that?" As a
that's hard.
child, I
Yeah,
had
that's hard.
adults coming up to me. So it was like I was just a
That's
raw
hard because
medium.
that's not something that, people understand. So to be
Yeah.
able to kind of, I mean, that's something that if you took that to a greater scale, that would help adults understand. And you know what I mean? Because our youth nowadays are so in tune. Like my little cousin, she is 16 and she just graduated high school a year early. And it's not because she's like super, super smart. It's because she failed all the other grades. So she went to military school. But like the way that they fit, the way that they, I don't want to say the word fix because there's nothing wrong. You know what I mean? Like, but because the school system's so
Adjust.
broken. But yeah, the way that they still can just like hop timelines and the way that they can just, say, oh, well, I, fooled around in school for 3 years, but I'm going to go do that. And just the way that she talks about emotions. Now, there's still a lot of healing. Don't get me wrong. Like, she shoves all her emotions down. But like when we're having a conversation, like she has that intuitive insight and she you know what I mean? Especially when something's highly charged, like, so to
I
be able to
see.
help children understand and help adults understand that children are so powerful
Mhm.
is really going to help flip the controversy of, well, I'm the adult, so I say so, and I have a greater understanding of life, and da 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 da. It's like, no,
I've
no, you
seen so
don't.
many people, even in the community, who have children that are like, "I'm so excited for what I get to learn from my kids these days," because like they are
Yes,
just
that's
so
the
in tune.
transformation. That's what we need. Yes, you're 100%. Yeah, that's the best way. I'm glad you're seeing that as well.
That's kind of how I've like, so it's really interesting because like during my stint with psychiatric care, it was weird because I had seen all over TikTok all of these things about autism in females and ADHD in females, and I was like, holy crap, that's pretty spot on.
Yep.
And so I mentioned it to the psychiatrist at one point. He's like, "Nobody's told you. I could tell within 15 minutes."
It's the right ones align in the Kundalini. Like when you're in the throes of everything, you get the right doctors, you get the right treatments, you get the ones that are willing to listen. Like, yes, if you need medicine for a short term, if you need medicine for a long term, nobody's gonna sit there, but you know what's right for you. And when you speak up about it and the alignment that you just get in. I'm going like
Hmm.
5 different ways with just 2 sentences, I feel like. So let me hone it back into the alignment of the Kundalini, what it like. It's like you're in this web and it literally is drawing everything to you as you are accepting that you have to do this work and you have to. I mean, it's
I
beautiful. It's
love that you
absolutely
said that
beautiful.
because, like, so many times I've had readings where I literally will tell people that when you are receptive and when you're in flow, like you're not trying to push towards your goals, that the universe will place it down in front of you as you remain on your path. And so when you're over here in depression because you're thinking about the past, you are writing scripts that keep you in loops instead of being in the present moment and focusing on the present moment. When you're in the future, that's anxiety, that's script writing, that's like, future telling, that, we never know what's going to happen in the future. Like, even if we do have a moment, I think we talked about this just right before we recorded. Even if we
We
had a
did.
moment where you're like, oh, I saw this thing and it's happening in the future, you could trip over the sidewalk the next day and go on to a whole different, like, timeline. Like, we never know what the actual future is going to be because there's so many different things lining up.
There
I
is. It
honestly
just,
don't even know where I was going with that, but apparently it had to come out.
oh, it always needs to. Yes. So you were very ready to jump into the next question in retrospect
Yes.
as we
The only
awaken
other thing that I wanted
further.
to
Oh,
add about my
yes.
uniqueness was that I've always been pulled to artwork. That my grandma has things that I've drawn when I was 1.5, like
Really?
since I could hold a crayon.
Now that is not something I knew about you. So that's exciting to learn. That, and I'm not really, I can't say I'm surprised. You know what I mean? It comes so fluidly and naturally for you. Watching your videos when you create even is just, it's,
I feel like when I'm doing, especially the artwork that I'm doing now, like the flowers and crystals stuff,
mhm,
putting my energetic intention into it, it's so relaxing for me because I basically shut my 3D mind off and I like watch the creation unfold for myself too. So it's like I just like allow something to like take over. Like it's just like the energy. I'm like, whatever needs to come through right now is what's coming through right now. And that's what happens for like people's intuitive artwork too. When I call forward their energy and it just kind of flows out onto the page, it's exciting for me too because I don't know what it's going to look like. It's
that's
so cool
fair.
to like see it happen, and I'm just like, wow, this is really awesome. And then I've been attending art school at nighttime. If anyone has listened to Jessa Reed, she talks about like alien school at nighttime and asking your guides to go to school at nighttime. And I've been asking for like psychic school and art school as well as rest and play because you got to have balance.
Of
And
course.
it's interesting because I'll go to sleep at nighttime and I'll wake up the next morning and my art is better. And
Ah, that's
if anybody
exciting.
scrolls backwards on my Instagram, you can just see the jump in like technique and ability. And I really equate that to surrendering to the process. And so it's cool for like my 3D mind to be like, oh, yeah, we really are kind of talented. And then you got to like simmer your ego down and you're like, you're not better than everybody.
Yep.
Like,
Yeah. Always got to keep it in check. It needs to be our
right?
friend, not our ruler. Yes. And it's funny though, real quick, you know how everybody does those videos where, or whatever, they get that satisfying feeling of like ripping the cellophane off of like new appliances or like your cell phone or something like that. You know how they
Mm-hmm.
talk about how satisfying that is? That's like watching you do your art. It's super satisfying to watch you just create because it's so intuitive, it's so clean, it's so majestic and spiritualized, it's honed in, and it gives it, at least it gives me that satisfaction. So if anybody wants that type of satisfaction, just go watch your IG,
That's
go,
so
yeah.
beautiful. I didn't know that.
Yes, oh yes, it's that satisfaction, it's that spiritual satisfaction. So.
That's amazing.
All right, so the next one is the retrospect. In retrospect, as we awaken further, we tend to see remnants of being awake in various ways our whole lives. Which do you identify with for your awakening time period?
So, back to those paranormal experiences.
Of course.
Um, I had a guardian, I'll call him a guardian. He never made me feel weird. Um, my parents were in the room next to me as a child, and when they would fight at nighttime, he would come and sit on the end of my bed and just put his hand down on the end of my bed. Never touched me, never broke those barriers. Just put his hand down beside my bed and would smile at me. And he never spoke anything out of his mouth, but I could hear him like, it's going to be all right. It's going to be
Of
all right.
course.
Like, I'm here for you. It's going to be all right. And for the longest time, I was like, he's my imaginary friend. Like, whatever. I'm not going to tell anybody about it. And I had a friend sleep over one night. And in the middle of the night, she got up and turned the light on and was pale. Just pale, pacing back and forth. I was like, whoa, what happened to you? You look like you've seen a ghost. She stops dead, turns to me. She's like, shut up. And I was like, did you see the man over there in the corner? She goes, I'm going home. And I just looked at her and I was like, I don't know why you'd go home. Your house is more haunted than mine is.
Oh my God, what did you say after that? Did you say it
And
out loud?
she's like, what? But anytime I went to her house, like she lived in one of the old prohibition, like one of the old coal mining houses.
Okay.
And so she has a lot of like children spirits that were there. I don't know if it was like an orphanage that was nearby or whatever, but there's a lot of like little kids in her home. So that was always interesting, and sleeping over there was really interesting. My friends one time were playing with a Ouija board at a party. I think I was like 13 or 14 years old. And it wasn't working. So they were going to pack it away, hands off. Nobody was touching it. And I arrived at the party late. And as soon as I walked in the room, the chip spelled out, "Hello, Jess. Bye. I'm going home. You have fun. See you later. Peace out." Mm-mm.
And think of all those experiences. I mean, I know that there's no shoulda, woulda, couldas, and it's not, but how amazing that we can give an earth that, like, that's what we're here to do, is bring an earth in, that those experiences are normalized and you get to jump into them with your friends instead of being like, whoa, ho, wait, let me, freak out
Honestly,
here.
if it happened
Like,
now, I would definitely fall into it.
yeah, it'd be amazing.
This,
Ah,
this second one is one that if it happened, I would be posting about it online. I'd be like, look. But I had an experience like up until probably the age of like 14 or 15. I had the ability of ergokinesis or electrokinesis, and I could turn on
nice.
and off streetlights with my mind.
Ah, that is exciting. I would totally do it all the time. Yeah,
And
I don't
one
blame you.
time I showed one of my friends because I thought it was cool. And she basically straight up called me a freak and then would never talk to me again. So I have like some shame work to deal with there. And when that time comes, that time will come.
Of
But
course.
I'm excited for the time that it comes.
Well, and I also think that what I get from that, you know what I mean? Like we've heard Jessa, who is the conductor of Soberish, which Jess mentioned earlier. She talks about like levitation and stuff. And for me, it's teleportation and, things like that. And
I've started bilocating now since my awakening and realizing I was doing it beforehand, but I wasn't as aware of what was happening on the other end. I would just disassociate here in this 3D realm, noticing that I'm off staring at the floor, my eyes are glazed over. But it's not just like disassociation, because like when you come back to reality, you like shake and sweat and you're nauseous and sometimes vomit. And it's like, it's difficult if you're not knowing what the process is. And I know lots of people who are in another spiritual community online. I actually like went to them and I'm like, does anyone else like know what the heck's going on? Because I feel pretty weird when I'm like almost passing out and like throwing up after this stuff occurs.
Yeah.
And they're like, it's just the amount of energy that you bring back into your body when you're bilocating that you have to like release it somehow.
That's interesting. For me, it's teleportation and telepathy, and they actually they tell it and tele, like there's a reason that they are, the beginning is is the same. They go hand in hand. So like if you can hone in on telepathy really, really well, you can actually teleport spiritually. Now, teleportation, we think of it as, oh, you have to do it 3D. Your whole body has to teleport. And that's not actually the case.
Through a portal.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. You can actually teleport. Like, I can sit and teleport as if I can use telepathy to a certain extent, then I can teleport, to where you are and have a conversation with you. It's just not, you know what I mean? And I'm having a conversation with you when our telepathy is honed in that well.
You literally just sparked something for me that happened in a healing session yesterday. I had a shadow work session. And of course, I'm not going to divulge everything that happened in that shadow work session. But at one point, the individual was sitting on a beach because I told them to go to some place that felt safe to them. And as they're describing the beach, I was like, I'm going to come to you. And as I closed my eyes, I could see and like feel the sand under my feet. And I went and I sat with her
Yes.
there and we had our shadow work session. And
Teleportation
so,
is
like,
so much more than what we think. We think of it
yeah,
only on a logical level. We don't think of it on a spiritual or etherical level until we actually realize, holy crap. So, yes.
yeah,
Yay. I'm glad you know
that's
what I
wild.
mean and that you just experienced that for us to have this even conversation. That's
Right?
amazing.
That's
Yes.
so cool.
I love
I've
it.
had other paranormal experiences where people were actually in the room for it to happen. I had a boyfriend at the time, like we literally packed our stuff up and left like that night. I had told him for a long time that I felt uncomfortable in this apartment building. And every time I'd step through the threshold of our house, I would feel an entity crawl up my body and hang off of me.
Like it makes me want to vomit. Like I can
Yeah.
feel like how
Right.
nauseating that is. Like
And
how
because I could tell that it was happening, I was like, I'm not going to give you my energy. I'm not giving you my power, which is why it was trying to climb all over me because I didn't know what energetic boundaries were. And it was like, I'm going to get your attention. And as I kept like not giving it attention, it started to turn into like a poltergeist. And so it would turn on up and down our thermostat and on and off our TVs. And as we were sitting there watching TV, when I could hear the water running down the hall, and I was like, the water's running down the hall. And my boyfriend at the time was like, oh, it's probably just the neighbor showering. Like 35 minutes goes by and the water's still going. And I'm like, no, like the water in the hall, it's going. And he's like, fine, I'll go check on it. So he gets up, goes down the hall, and he's like, what the hell? And then all of a sudden I heard silence. The water stopped and he goes, fuck this shit. Sorry for all the language. But I guess the tap turned off in front of him
and
before he could turn it off himself. It just went, meh.
so he was ready to go too.
And he was like, we're moving. We're moving right now. And I'm like, oh, you didn't believe me before? Like,
It's sometimes hard. I get it. I've been there. I do that. You know what I mean? I still have family that it's hard for them to wrap their heads around things, and it's kind of like tried to tell you, but
right?
I've also stopped trying to tell sometimes because it's like, yeah, I'm just gonna watch this play out. It'll, you know, they'll get it eventually.
Exactly.
So
Exactly. So yeah, and then I realized that I had been watched and guarded my entire life. This is that letter from my grandma because these experiences happened when I was too young to remember them, but I think that they're very important, especially because I was like 3 and 4 years old when I'm saying these things. And
yeah,
um I was raised Mormon, so the language that I use here is very much like God and angels, not like the universe and spiritual beings.
I use it
But
too.
she wrote me this letter, and she was writing it to let me know that my fake friend, the universe, is Satan in disguise, and that I needed to rebuke him and come back to church. But that's not really the point. She was letting me know that as a toddler, I would sing in my crib, say that it's them, the angels. But there was another instance where I came into the kitchen. Don't ask me why my parents and grandparents were in the kitchen when I was in a kiddie pool in the yard. But
We
I
were.
came into the kitchen
Yep.
soaking
No.
wet. This was the 90s. We didn't
I was
have
about to say,
like,
yeah, no, we
hover
were free
parents
for all.
then.
Yeah, we got to do. We got to be free.
Kids couldn't drown in kiddie pools. You know what I mean? Like, no. So anyway, I come in and I'm soaking wet and shaking and terrified. And they're like, Jess, what happened? And I'm like, the neighbor boy, he sat on me and wouldn't let me get up. So I was in the backyard drowning.
That's terrifying.
And my grandma, I guess, was like, well, how did you make him get off of you? And I said, I didn't. I asked them to help me and they made him get off of me.
I'll say hallelujah, hallelujah again, like literally hallelujah. You know, I don't know why that's
Right?
coming up so much in this episode. I'm not, you know, it's not my normal daily like mantra, but we'll roll with it.
There was two other very near death experiences. Like I can sit here and tell you I should have died in those moments where like it just is so clear to me that I have work to do here and that I'm not allowed to die yet. But I was in a vehicle intoxicated with my then partner who was also intoxicated. Don't do these things, don't drink and drive. You could hurt so many people. He ran a red light and I looked and all I could see were headlights right beside him. Like this car was going to hit us. We were about to be T-boned. And I closed my eyes and turned my head. And when I opened my eyes, there were taillights on the other side of me. The cars went right through each other.
Jesus. I've got chills all over
Zero
me.
accidents.
Yeah. I've got chills all throughout my body right now.
Oh, you wait for this one. This one, I
I'm
will
ready.
probably cry again
Okay.
because this was one of the most, this
I'll
was
hold
one of
the
the most
space.
special moments of my life. I was hiking with my brother and we were in the Hoodoos, riding on Stone, which is a Native American place here in southern Alberta. And they just have like all this sandstone, like you can walk through them, big, tall, like cliff areas. At the end, you can see like rock carvings. It's really beautiful. And we had just finished at the rock carvings and we were hanging out and we were on our way back. And I went to go say something to my brother and my foot rolled on a rock. As I turned to him, I could feel everything, all the bones in my leg were all of a sudden just gone. My leg turned to like rubber. And I was horizontal off the edge of a cliff, looking down 20 feet to rocks and trees. I was falling. And all of a sudden I stopped midair because I could feel more than 24 hands around my body. All over my shoulders, my arms, around my torso, my legs, everything. And picked me up and put me upright. And my brother was standing behind me when this happened. And I looked at him and he looked at me and I said, I was falling. And he was like, you were falling. And I'm like, how? And he's like, I don't know. Sometimes we don't know how blessed we are.
No, we don't. As a society, we still have no clue. We have no idea. We lost that understanding when we lost Egypt and Lemuria and Atlantis. You know what I mean? But these are the yugas that we have to go through to be able to. It's like a fallen angel. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When we're born into a entitlement, we don't always really understand. You know what I mean? And so we got to fall to rise, and that's where we're at, and we're doing it, and that's just proof right there that we have so much ammunition that is just allowing us to win these battles, physical ones that help us believe more. You know what I mean? Like that's one of those ones that it's just like, it's undeniable. It's undeniable.
I was absolutely horizontal. And my brother even told me, he was like, your leg looked like it had turned to rubber. He was like, I don't know how it's not broken. And I'm like, I can tell, like, you just have like that knowing.
Yeah.
And it just kind of like hit me. It was like my bones were taken out of my leg at that moment so that I wouldn't break my leg. Where we were was another hour hike back. There was no way, even if I broke my leg, that I would be getting out of there.
Yeah.
Not only that, but then I was falling off the edge of a freaking cliff and was picked up from a horizontal position and put back on the ground.
Spirit does some extreme things to earn our trust. And for us to know that it's one of those, there's a question that I've been asked numerous times, and it's, have you had anything occur that you don't have tangible evidence for? And this is one of those things, you know what I mean? Like, and that's what Spirit's all about, is learning to trust with the intangible evidence that we're presented, and knowing and having faith that, when you tell this story, it's unwavering. Like, that it's real, and it's okay if somebody else doesn't believe that it's real. You know what I mean? Like somebody that hasn't fully stepped into their, that has those doubts, because those people will then eventually experience their own callings and their own, things that eventually present intangible evidence, and it just keeps happening and happening until, of course, we anchor in that new earth again. But in the meantime, you know what I mean? Like it's really a lesson and a journey for the self. That right there,
and
that
it
was
could even have not even just been for me.
your
Obviously
brother,
it was
I'm
for
sure,
me,
was,
but my brother was there too, watching it, right?
That
and
was
like, how
definitely
undeniable would it be for him to be like, I literally was watching my sister fall off a cliff and she got picked up and put back on the ground.
Yes. Yeah, to be able to witness things like that, even, you know what I mean? Yes, it's so powerful, absolutely so powerful. And that is a story that, you will tell and take with you. And I hope I
I'll
hear it
probably
many
cry
more
every time I
times.
tell it,
That's
because
okay.
every
It's
single
okay.
time I hear or say it again, I can like feel that energy in my body. Like it was so tangible, like it was so visceral. I could feel the hands close around my body, and like just like saying it again like reminds me of how powerful that moment was,
Yes.
because of just like all the circumstances. And I was just like, that was one of the most powerful experiences of my life.
It sounds like it. And I know that, we all have those that can relate. So if anybody wants to share their powerful experience like Jess just has, feel free to either email either of us, put it in the comments, anything like that. We would love to hear. All right. Where are we at on that? Was that
That was
where
the last one.
I
Yeah,
thought so, but I just wanted to make sure. I like to clarify.
well, I mean, I'm sure that there's like 500 other
Of
instances I
course.
could talk about, but
No, there are. I mean, we really could. It's just what
oh
comes
yeah.
up, and we'll do, we'll do episodes
Well, I
on
mean, like
other things as
when you
well.
really get
So
into some of it, actually, I just have this one story playing over in my mind to also talk about like how we don't really know anything.
yes,
Um, when I was 16, I was at my grandparents' house and they had company come over. And so there was no longer a bed for me to sleep in inside. So we set up a tent. It was the middle of the summer, air mattress out there, it's great. And I'm laying in the air mattress. And as I'm falling asleep on my back, I can feel something that went down my back inside the air mattress. So I flipped over and I've got both my hands underneath me now. And now I'm on high alert trying to tell myself it was just you falling asleep. It's fine. It was just you falling asleep.
I love how you
And
do
then I
that. Like
felt it
you got the
again.
face rub whenever you need to calm down. You're like, yes, I love it. Go on. I'm
So
sorry.
it's okay. That's part of like the autism. Like it just makes me feel safe, right? Like a mom holding her
I have
child's face.
I've got my own thing, so I understand
So
completely.
now I've got my arms underneath me and I'm like talking myself down. And then I feel it again. So I'm sitting up and I'm like, I know I felt that. And the wind started to pick up. And in southern Alberta, if anybody lives in southern Alberta, you know that that's not always out of the realm of possibility. So I'm like, okay, well, the wind's picking up, whatever. But then the wind starts picking up so much that I was like, this tent is going to blow away. I need to go inside. Like, I no longer feel safe. I no longer feel safe. I need to go inside. And I unzipped the tent and I took one step out of the tent and I froze. I had no more control over my body. I was frozen in place. I cannot move. And there was an entity behind me that I could feel. And in my mind and space, in this time and space, I was like, is it demonic? Like, am I like about to like get hurt? I was questioning my belief in the Mormon church at this point in time. And I was like, Satan's here to get me. And once I had gotten my feet moving again, I started to make my way to my grandparents' bedroom. I had no idea what I needed. I just needed to be safe. And my psychic grandmother, the moment my toes touched the threshold, she sat straight up in bed and was like, Richard, my grandpa, Richard, get up. Jess needs a blessing. And I like hit the ground at that point, was shaking like a kid. I couldn't even talk. I couldn't even tell them what was wrong. And my grandpa literally picked me up. I'm 16. I don't know how he did it. Picked me up like I was a 4-year-old kid and put me on the bed and started to give me a blessing. And the only sentence I remember in that blessing was, once you have met one, you cannot deny the other. Okay, so I did just meet Satan in my mind. Okay.
Yes.
Later on down the road after my awakening, I had left the Mormon church, blah, blah, blah. Wasn't even thinking about this moment. And all of a sudden, it came into my mind space and I was like, oh, I'm not going to run away from this. I'm going to close my eyes and see what the heck is going on. As I closed my eyes and dropped into this space, it was made very apparent to me by all guides and other beings that I needed myself to keep myself on the path of being open to spirit, any spirit. I was not only questioning my belief in the Mormon church, I was questioning my belief in God himself. And God, the universe, spirit, whatever name you want to give him, I was about to cut myself off from it. I literally was taken back to that moment where I was the evil spirit, in quotation marks, shaking the freaking tent to scare myself. When I stepped out of the tent, I went behind myself and was doing some kind of energy work. But that moment when I was 16 stopped me from shutting the door to my belief, even though it was just me in that moment doing that to myself.
That's beautiful. That's absolutely beautiful. I have chills. That is absolutely beautiful. And guys, what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick commercial break, and we're going to do a nice ad for Jess, let her promote some of her stuff, and then we'll be back shortly. Are you vibing today with Jess Walker on this episode of Kundalini Rising? If so, here's all of her personal information so that way you can connect on your own time. You can find Jess at jet.artworks on Instagram, and you can also follow her personal Instagram at Jess Walker 25. Now, she also has a website that has her intuitive art, her readings and services, her Reiki infused apparel, and let's not forget, every bit of those pretty much comes with all of the light codes. She is the light code queen. So look her up, follow her, see all the apparel that she has, leggings, hoodings, everything else. And then she also offers shadow work classes as well as intuitive artwork courses. So I hope you really enjoy this episode and even more Jess's story of awakening, and allow it to teach you something on your own. Back to the episode. All right, welcome back to the second half of the first episode of Kundalini Rising with Jess Walker. We have had a thrilling, informative, and intuitive first episode. Well, first half, I should say. And now we're getting into the second half. We're going to jump into the questions. And do you have anything that you want to say, Jess, before we get started?
I'm excited that we're back.
Yeah, you and me both. I know we had to take a brief break, life and the universe and everything. And so to be back is enjoyable. So we've been catching up for a good half hour prior to, which is absolutely normal. But sometimes I wish that we would record it, because then it would be great stuff for later on. So
Next time
anyway,
we'll just click record and then delete the stuff that we don't need.
just have like convo episodes where it's like, oh, let's take that snippet for this episode.
Honestly, we should just
Yes.
record everyone every time we get on the phone, because you and I always have such like really amazing conversations.
We absolutely do. We absolutely do. That is undeniable, and I always look forward to them because it's never ending. So
I do too. And then of course we're like, oh, look at the time. We should probably do what we were supposed to do, because we've been chatting for 40 minutes.
Exactly. All right. Well, getting back to what we were supposed to be doing, in air quotes, because we do what we want, because we create our own universe. All right. So I really like this question because we all come from different backgrounds in awakening. And so for the Kundalini aspect, what route of studies and remembering has your awakening path taken you through?
So I love this question, even though I didn't really remember my path until I had that spontaneous awakening. But it was so cool to see everything that had happened prior to my awakening that led me to this desired path of studies. I started out in 2020 reading tarot and oracle. I started in a practice group, and it was very clear right away that this was something that I was meant to do. Everyone was like, why are you in this group? You don't need to practice. And I'm like, I've literally been reading for 3 weeks. Like, I need to be here. And they're like, no, you don't. And so I really just fell into tarot and oracle and kept giving readings. And every single time I would give a reading, people were like, you don't even understand how pertinent that is to my life. And I'm like, I just say what I'm told. So it's not even me. I just facilitate. I'm so glad that you are open to receiving, because I always say that too. When the person who is receiving the reading is open to it, the
Yes,
flow is so much more.
I agree. Yes. That's
I
very
also,
important too. Like the importance of that, because
yeah,
you know, we've all, and I don't, maybe you haven't, but I know that I've had a reading where I hit a wall with somebody and it's just, you know, they're not ready yet. They're not. And so it's like you have to find the elegant way of working around that
Yeah.
and work with your higher self to be able to communicate with them in a way that they're ready for, so as to like not strong arm them in a sense.
It literally happened to me this morning. I had to take a sit back. I had to take like a deep breath in, and I'm like, please give me the right words to say this.
Yes. Yeah.
Because the way that it was coming through before, it was just all of a sudden, bam, stopped.
Yep.
And I've also had it in readings where all of a sudden the entire channel will just close, and it's very obvious that the person on the other side took something in a way that was either not like meant to be that way and they just were like, I'm not wanting this, or they had misinterpreted what I was saying and spirit was like, they're not ready. And so I've had that happen before too, and I'm like, the entire channel just closed, like I don't know what to tell you. Eh.
Interesting.
So that's happened before. But while reading, I started to notice a pattern in my readings, and that things that were coming up for people were blockages that were stopping them from being able to manifest their greatest reality. It was leading back to things that happened in childhood. It was leading back to self love and self worth, which led me down a path of becoming a shadow work coach and creating a shadow work course. So I do an online intro to shadow work course, and I do one here in the city in person. And it was really interesting with that one coming up because I got to see throughout my lifetime all of the things that led me to standing up in front of people and teaching, as well as creating this like course, this lesson plan, because I was raised in Army cadets where I went through the program and then became a civilian instructor. So it was my job to create lesson plans and to teach kids how to do things. And so I might not be teaching children, but I am teaching people how to do very brand new things for them. And so it's really cool to be able to implement that fun aspect to it and be like, we're not here to do some like really hard nitty gritty thing. I'm here to show you some tools, some tips, some tricks for when you're going through that nitty gritty thing. And the things that we're going to do, hopefully, today are fun and they could spark shadow work. I'm here for that. And at any point in time, if you or I ever feel like it's too much, I always implore people to seek mental health help, because shadow work is going through your mental health. Shadow work opens doors that have been closed due to trauma, triggers, and things that cause upset feelings, shame, anger, self hatred. But behind these doors are our own personal power. And we shut off aspects of ourself due to shame, due to anger, due to self hatred, because of stuff that had happened in our past. And so when we go through shadow work and we divulge all of those things about ourselves, we open these doors, and we open doors to literal magic. Sometimes we're
Yes.
talking about telepathic powers.
Yes.
Sometimes we're talking about opening up your own intuition, your third eye, being able to see spirit on the other side of the veil. Like, these are things that are true magic, but they take a difficult path to get there, because healing is a difficult journey that we
Yes.
all signed up for.
Yeah, in the
And
book of the Golden Dawn, it talks about how there's two paths, and the first path is you can like just rush in and you can maintain, you can grasp premonitions and telepathy and telekinesis and all of these things, but the path is not sustainable because you haven't done the work. There's the second path that is like what you're talking about, where we go through the agoraphobia or the psychosis or the whatever it is that we've had to go through. And you were talking about how like you were taught to like work with children. When you do shadow work though, you are working with
working.
children. I don't care
Mm-hmm.
how old I am.
Yep.
Like when I'm hit with those raw emotions, like I become an adult child You know what I mean? Like, I become an adult child in some ways that, like, I mean, and with each healing layer, I become more spiritually mature. So I don't deduce myself to that adult child. But in the beginning, you know what I mean? Crying, wanting to run
Tantrums.
away,
Not even just
cutting
crying.
my cutting
Tantrums
myself, wanting to kill myself, like all of those things.
from
You know what I mean?
teenage years
Yeah.
and
It,
childhood. Yep.
it's just, you know what I mean? Like the pain deduces down to and attaches down to our inner child and the way that we respond to it. You know what I mean? The way that I see a lot of men respond to it is, you know, the moment that they feel tears coming into their eyes, they all of
Shut
a
it down.
sudden suck them back in and shut down. Like that is a child response. That is a
You see how
child.
both of us did the
Yeah.
same thing too. For those who are not able to see the video, we both just like recoiled at the same time in the same way, pulled our heads back, pulled our shoulders back.
Yeah. It's a childlike response because at some point in time when you were a child, you were not made to feel safe to show those emotions.
Your
So you
parent would
revert
say,
back
"Stop
to,
crying."
yep. And so you revert back to how you had to respond as a child. And so, yes, I mean, I don't give a shit, pardon my language. If you're my age, 36, if you're 50, whatever it is, there is childlike in there. There is a child in there that comes out when these emotions come out. And depending on how you were raised to deal with these emotions is how you will respond. Because the age that the trauma occurred is the age of your mental and emotional and spiritual state whenever you now try to heal it. So I started using drugs when I was 12 and my emotional immaturity set in and my trauma set in when I was 10. So between the ages of 10 and 12, that's where I was frozen until I was 30 years old. And, you know, I could sit there and scream that I was 22 or that I was 28 or whatever it was, but no, absolutely not. I mean, age wise, yes, but age is literally just a number. And that is a very symbolic, like, mantra. It's a symbolic mantra to say because age is truly just a number. It's a way that we monitor the time space continuum in this realm. It has absolutely nothing to do with maturity or anything of the sort, unless it's on an astrological scale, because then when you get the Saturn return at 30, you know, and how your chart is laid out, then it can, then, you know, it's, that's a whole nother rabbit hole. But yeah, so what you're doing, you are working with children in that aspect. I mean, I'd be the first to say if I did shadow work with you, like I'm going to be in my child form. I'm going to be working through something that is so raw and so vulnerable that you're going to find me in what other people might look at as immature. And it's like, you know, I'm dealing with a raw emotion that I, you know, am going to cry and scream and need held and need that safe space container held.
Absolutely. One of the other things that I had started on my journey was channeling light linguistics, both
Yes.
written and spoken.
I love this. Oh my gosh. I love this so much. I still have not gotten my tattoo. I was thinking about it the other day, but I love every aspect of this. I'm so excited for you to talk about this.
I had a friend who put it so beautifully because people are like, what does it say? What does it say? What does it say? I want to know what it says. Unfortunately, light linguistics does not translate to English. We want to have meaning to everything and we want it spoken to us, not felt. This is on an emotional level. This is felt, not heard. And so even when you hear the tones and frequencies when people are speaking it, it is how those tones and frequencies enter into your body that is doing what the light linguistics need to do. When you look at written light linguistics, it is coding that your eyes see in a specific pattern that will resonate in a frequency along your body. And my friend describes light linguistics like making music. So when I made light linguistics for Toria, I made a specific song for her. However,
Yeah.
anybody who listens to that song can enjoy it.
And be
So
activated.
anybody who sees the light language, anyone who hears the light linguistics, they can pick up on energetic spillover, which I love because even when I am channeling for a specific purpose or a specific person, anybody can benefit from hearing and seeing it.
And I just want to add, just from hearing you talk, and sitting on my little whatever in future earth, that there will be the enlightenment time that we understand light language in an earth language. Like there, it's going to come. And I'm not going to be surprised if you're going to be one of the first to activate it in the collective, being able that being that you can speak it and transmute it into the forms that we need to be able to see it. But there is the earthly understanding, and it'll come out kind of like how Reiki does, like how Reiki can be for releasing the throat chakra, for confidence. Like you'll be able to fine tune, okay, this is meant for this is meant for that, and kind of even do like whatever it might be, a book series, a poetry series, things like that. Pardon my chair. But we will have the ability. It's just we have to get it in layers.
Yeah, and that is starting to come online too, because I can hold a specific intention and then channel for that intention. But if I'm having the channel open, like if I'm doing an intuitive piece for somebody, when I do the galactic soul portraits, I put the light language tattoos on everybody's body. And
Yep,
lots
I've
of the
gotten
time
one of
people
those as
are
well.
like, I want to know what they mean. And I'm just like, I don't really have that ability right now, and like maybe it will come. And so when I just write it for that purpose, I can't be like, well, this was to activate this and this was to activate that. And I mean, maybe I'm open to it.
Well, I can guarantee you it's coming. That's just one of those prophetic states
Right?
of being in future Earth. Like it's definitely coming. And I don't know if you remember whenever you did my galactic soul portrait. It's been a couple years now. But like who I saw myself as in the spirit realm, very specifically with the rings on either hand and like the elegant like dress with the shawl kind of thing, and then like the where my tattoos were placed, and where even tattoos that I hadn't gotten but could feel were there etherically, like you pinpointed all of that.
And there were a
And then
couple
so it
of
was
them
like,
that I put a tattoo somewhere, and you were like, that even is almost the same shape as the one I have on my body. Like,
yes,
look at this. And I'm like, oh, that's
exactly.
cool.
Yeah. And
And
we've,
yours was
yes.
one of the first that I did. And like, it was within the first dozen. So it was still like really like, holy crap, like I'm doing this. Cause it was
Right.
also like, very, very, like at the start of my awakening. And so I was still grasping a hold of that, like, you are magical and you have really powerful abilities. And that's just, part of your journey here on life. And people are going to tell you that these things that you're saying are ringing very true for them.
Well, and I
Actually,
think, oh, sorry. Can I,
I was
can
going
I,
to say
can I
just,
interject for a second?
yeah, of course.
Okay. So I think, and what I'm seeing and why it comes to life is because the stages that you're in are the stages that you're creating in. And so it's really funny that you say that that was at the beginning, whenever you were really stepping into your power and finding that you were powerful, because it kind of reflected in the art for me, because I was seeing myself in this etherical way and spiritual body that I had not yet really gotten to experience before, in the way that I witnessed myself as like this princess kind of in this part of my awakening. And you were able to give that to me in a full visual that I could acknowledge, like, holy shit, yes, that's me. That is real. That is I'm embodying that, and I've been embodying that. And then I also felt that like it was kind of like the placement, like how like the integration, like you've got the one body and another body and they're slowly coming in, and then like whenever I saw that visual, it finally was like, okay, now they're setting in each other. And then it also like, then what I see is like this divine light all around, and then it's like, okay, now you move to the next level. So it was like it was like confirmation, affirmation, activation to the next level. And then now as you move through, and as you like, and you use Reiki infused art anyways, so that might be why I see your light language coming out as like a Reiki type of interpretation, and being able to do that because you create with your light language. So it's all, in all honesty, your journey is what you're going to project into it, and what you're going to be able to provide for other people, which is absolutely phenomenal, because it takes you being a creatrix to a whole nother level and a whole nother understanding.
That's so cool for me to like hear that side of it, to just be like, this is what I got from your artwork and I love it every time. It actually perfectly aligns with what I was going to say, because the only other thing that I wanted to add to number 6 here was like back to my grandma's letter. Um, now again, like my language here was limited to what I knew on earth. So I really equate it to what I knew in the Mormon religion. But she told me that I had said that I'm one of God's chosen elite and that I will be on the trek to Zion to witness the trials and tribulations of the saints through the pictures that I draw. I was a child who uses that kind of terminology. First of all, the trials and
Someone's
tribulations,
super tapped in.
right? And then I'm sitting there, and when I read that, I was like, well, what do I do now? Like, I wouldn't like equate myself to being better than anybody, but I am one of the first awakened souls that are helping to awaken other souls. There were many, 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 many souls that woke up before me in 2020, but I definitely came in on that wave to do some incredible things, and there's no denying that.
No,
And
I don't think you should. It doesn't
right?
symbolize a hierarchy in any way. It
Yeah.
has to be done in waves. And what I have identified it with is a lot of the souls that are awakening have actually not really had reincarnations on Earth. That they're from higher up councils that, you know, are very like in that is something I talk about in another episode. I'm not on Kundalini Rising, but just on my YouTube channel and in my podcast. I can't remember what episode it is offhand. I'm trying to think. Anyways, it comes down to like, I know that I have never had an incarnation on Earth up until this point, and that I'm here specifically. Like, I am one of the council members that has overseen Earth for all of its millenniums and cosmos and infinity, and that it was part of this wave that I had to come down. And there's a lot of us. And I got a lot of that from Dolores Cannon's book, The Three Waves and the New Earth. And it just, of course, aligned for me. And it was very perfect that I listened to it when I did, because I facilitate past life regressions, and I can do various kinds. Yet every time I've ever tried to be regressed, I cannot regress. I go to just like ancient knowledge, and I go to, you know, like all of these, like, and I go to seeing like mythological, and I go to seeing Norse or whatever it is, or Lilith. I cannot find myself in another human body. And one of the other things that she talks about is, and it's the way that we feel too, a lot of like the depression that comes with it, and then not wanting to be here. There's a lot
Looking
of
up at the
emotional
stars and
responses
asking
to it.
your family to come and get you.
Yes, there is a
Because I
lot
know
of
lots of
emotional
people do that, and I
responses to
have
it.
as well.
Yeah. And some of us
Yeah.
that we did attempt at one point in time to ascend Earth a while back, and kind of like failed. And I'm pretty sure that's kind of really common knowledge at this point for a lot of people, that there was a wave that came and they tried and they didn't have enough. And so now
Was
like
that
they
in the
ended up,
70s?
I don't know if it was in the
Or
70s.
was this like way some other
I'm
time? I just know that they were all like, let's do this. And
I would say it
then
was like a long time ago, like thousands of years ago, I believe, maybe in our
Egypt, like
time. I
Roman,
I don't know if it was in
who
between.
knows?
Yeah, exactly. That's something to definitely ask and try to get more information on.
That'd be
Um,
cool,
I agree. Yes, yes. Ask and we shall receive. That's how it
right?
always works. Um, and so, but there's three different waves, and some of them came the first time. So they do have like that one human life or whatever. And others, what they do is they imprint. They go and they take they go to the Akashic records, and they pull experiences from other people's incarnations, and they apply them to the soul that you're incarnating in. So that way you have memories to go off of that are helping you on your journey.
That's pretty
And
cool.
yeah, I mean, it's pretty fascinating. So like getting to know these other parts of our soul and understand why we feel this way. And you know what I mean? Because I really, really get tired of being here sometimes. I don't want to kill myself. I
Same
don't think
with
about it in
me.
that. Yeah, but it's just like, man, like this sucks.
Some
Like,
that sentence still comes out though, where I'm like, I'm pretty done with this reality. Like, is this really it? Like,
like
and
my
it's not the whole suicidal ideation anymore, which is great. But like I still literally have like taken a look around and I'm like, you know what? We're not having a good time.
it's like my
And
higher self really integrated. It was just like a week or two ago. It was probably 2 weeks, maybe 2 weeks or so ago. Anyways, time doesn't matter. My higher self integrated and was like, this is it. This is so mundane. Like you just do this all the day. Like, cause it was like doing the dishes, making dinner, you know what I mean? And like literally
literally,
my higher
oh
self
yeah.
came direct. Like it was like whatever my galactic council self did came in and was like, this is it. And
Over
I'm
the
like,
last few
this is
months, I
it.
also
This
fully
is fucking it.
integrated
Yeah.
because like this last like shift or whatever. And then I had said something and I went to go call in my guides and my higher self for the day. And all of a sudden my higher self was just like integrated. Like, you don't need to call me in anymore. I hear. And not impressed. No.
I
It's
mean,
just like
it's kind of like wire, like because and she talks about it in the book. You know what I mean? Like how so many of souls, like we all talk about how we volunteered to come to Earth, and it's like actually there's a huge majority of us that did not volunteer to come to Earth. We just knew that we needed to. Like
needed
we
to.
understood the essence of
Yep.
and what was necessary, but we weren't looking forward to it. We weren't
Yeah,
happy
right.
about it. Like if we like we couldn't even in some of the um records of her facilitations of these past life, because Dolores Cannon is a famous past life regressionist. She, you can tell that like there's not necessarily emotions to it in their ethereal form, but they're just like, we just had to. We knew we had to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that we knew we had to, and there was nothing that we could do about it, and we had to. And it's like, but you can tell like in the emotions of being human, it's like didn't fucking want to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, excuse me, Piper. You need to
Piper's
go
like,
down.
I'm here.
Yes.
No,
We
it's so interesting too
love
because
her.
like since like integrating my higher self, like every single time I'm like wondering what to do with my life, it's always like seek fun and adventure. Everything else will come. Like, you know what? Like if
Yes.
this is your life right now, you want to grow and expand your life into what, man? Like into what? Go create a great life and watch everything create itself for you. Like, you know, like you're going to have opportunities present themselves to you. You're going to go, yeah, I want to do that. Hell yeah, I want to do that. It's going to like, you know, pertain to that heart centered desire and pull you
Yes.
to it. But like, we can't even be in that space of receiving if we're not out being open. And how can we do that when we're just so shut down and focused and have blinders on to like try and receive our desires? It's like you have to just open yourself up. And what do we come to earth for? To experience. Go have some experiences.
Yes.
Even if they're
Yes.
not great. If you go out and you're like, I did not like that, then you learned that you didn't like doing something.
That, yeah. And there's also the other aspect of it too, not to just like, throw everybody under the bus that has to have experiences, because some of us have lived a massive amount of experiences prior to our awakening. And then now it's really about finding peace
Mm-hmm.
and like
But
finding
those
like
are experiences too. So it just shifts
100%.
the
Yes. Yes.
experience. You're like, I experienced all of that high energetic, drama filled
That
crap. So what I want
chaos
to
and
experience now is sitting in a park under a tree. I want to
exactly.
feel the energy of the tree coming into my body through my back that is connected to its trunk. And I just want to sit here and listen to the birds for a minute.
And to bring it back to like being, like all powerful, which you are, and there is no doubt about it. I have known you for quite a while now, a couple years, and like the constant conversations, the awakening, everything is just magnificent. I mean, if you look at the numbers of Earth, we have like probably close to 9 billion people now. I don't really remember when the last actual consensus count was, or when that last eighth, ninth, billionth baby was born.
9 million.
But I do remember we've hit those numbers. And, we've got maybe like 1 million people that have awoken, maybe 2 million. We might have hit
Yeah.
2 million at this point, which is a very small denomination compared to the billions of people that are on the earth.
But then
So,
think about
yes,
how fast the dominoes are going to fall because look at Jessa Reed. She is
yes.
one person. How many people woke up because of her?
I think
And
she has like a
how
following of like 10 or 20,000. You know what I
something like
mean?
that, right?
Yeah.
And literally, how many more people are going to wake up when those people find their purpose on life, like in life, and just start living their truth? You don't have to go out and teach things like I do. You don't have to go out and like, you know, become a tarot reader and a yogi and like all of this other stuff. You live your truth and your authentic light shines through you. And
Yeah.
when you meet people, you can pass somebody on the street and your authentic light is going to hit them. And you could spark somebody's awakening by walking down the street. We don't know. We
We
don't
will be
know.
able to. The more awakened you are, the more enlightened you are, you have the ability to just walk through a group of people and
Yeah.
activate each person's healing. Like, it is coming, and it just depends on where you are in your own awakening that you have the ability to do
Yep.
that. There's a like I mean, there are a lot of people that were working towards that. And when it comes to Jessa, I always say that she's collecting the collective. And that, and I don't think that, and I don't want to, I mean, everybody's story is their own. I think that the reason people find her is because they are already awakening, because they're resonating on that vibrancy. I don't think that she necessarily, I mean, I mean, we all activate each other. I don't
Yeah,
think that every person was activated by her that finds her, because
for
I
sure.
know, you know what I mean? Like, and everybody looks at it in their own way. And I think that that's one of the things that these, whatever, how many there are of us that are awakening at this moment, and there's more and more every single day, we are all activating each other. And it's not from a hierarchy perception, but there
It's
are some of
whoever's
us
ready.
that are downloading and anchoring in a full spectrum of future Earth and a full spectrum of galactic knowledge and things like that. And we're all doing it in different realms. Like, you have the Reiki, you have the past life, you have the art, you have the intuitive knowledge, the readers, and some people are very well diverse. But you know what I mean? Like, you have big anchors that then facilitate it out. And you know what I mean? So we had to have those people that were spiritually capable of anchoring in that ancient knowledge and that profound wisdom in such a high aspect. You know what I mean? Like, you having a past life as Merlin or coming from the energy of Merlin is a very symbolic prominence. And then me, you know, with Hermetic prophecy and, you know, transmuting through Hermes and Thoth, like that, you know what I mean? Like, those are two heavy, heavy anchors that are weighing in Hermetic knowledge and downloading it into the earth for ascension. And, you know, it's basically full circle. It was created with Hermetic principles and Hermetic knowledge. And it's kind of like everything went into the shadow realm and forgot where it came from. And then now we're awakening and bringing it back in. Like, remember,
I love that
remember,
you said that,
remember.
because one of the very first um downloads that I knew, oh, that was a download, and it came in, it was telling me that I was to house and bring back the knowledge of the 13 Mayan crystal skulls.
There you
And
go.
so, like, that's just part of my
I just
job.
got like
And
chills all
yeah,
over,
like it
like
was, it was just
raw, like, ooh.
one of my first downloads was that. I mean, the other one was they will eat themselves alive, which was just soothing to my anarchist soul, to just let them do their own thing. They're going to tear down their own system. Let's just pay attention to what we want to rebuild.
It's
So,
funny, like, mine is always, it reverts back to the for they know not what they do.
right,
You know what I mean? I
right.
mean, it's very like Catholic in a sense, but it was
Hmm.
it was actually downloaded to me. It was like, remember, they don't know what they're like, they do not
And
know what they
I
do.
I had a moment like that too, and it was like, can you imagine being on in their shoes and having an awakening?
Shit, I remember that. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, I mean, think about, like, when I was in drug addiction, and yes, I've always had gifts and stuff like that, but I was still like, when Earth was under quarantine and nobody could touch it, and no, like, we didn't have the help that we have now. Like, we remember those days. We remember those. Like, you went through them, I went through them. We very much were those people, and that's where it's like, we have to have that. And that's one of the reasons that I love doing these awakening episodes, is so that way everybody awakening can hear other people's story and find
Yeah,
that compassion again. Because it's almost like,
right.
once we awaken, we go through this phase of putting ourselves on a pedestal, and it happens to everybody. No
It
one is
does.
immune to it, because the pendulum has to swing. We
But
were
then
talking
when
about
we
this the
do
other
the
day.
shadow work, then we feel like crap, because we're like, oh, I was a really shitty person before I woke up. Like, for
Well,
me, when I was going through mine, like, I realized wholeheartedly that I was an energetic vampire and that I required other people's validation in order to feel good about myself. And then I was like, ooh. And that's when it comes with the shadow work. Like, I could have taken that and been like, that's disgusting. Like, what the hell? You are such a gross being, blah, blah, blah. And even saying that doesn't feel good in my body. So that's all I'm going to say about it. But I was like, no, you know what? Like, you can take this moment and you can say, I don't resonate with that anymore. Thank you for showing me how I no longer want to behave. How can I address this? First and foremost, give yourself the energy that you are sucking from others. You don't need people's validation. When was the last time you looked in the mirror and told yourself that you're a fucking rock star? When was
Yes.
the last
Yeah.
time you looked in the mirror and said, I love you? You're a
Very much.
warrior. You have
Exactly.
gone through so much stuff, and look at you now, you beautiful being.
Well, and those are the phases of awakening as well. And not to get too off topic, but like you go through the phase of being the warrior because you fight yourself. You know what I mean? Like you fight your ego, you fight the patterning, you fight the narcissistic tendencies, you become aware of them, the codependency, whatever you want to call it. It's all, to me, in my perception and my understanding of it, in the way that I have that I understand mystic psychology and the creation of psychology and how it works intricately, is that narcissistic tendencies, everyone has them. Now, obviously, how blaring they are is different in each person. You know what I mean? When you're an addict, you're a narcissist. Whenever you're an abuser, you're a narcissist. Codependency is narcissism. You know what I mean? Because you're manipulating people to love you, and
Yeah.
you're trying to make yourself like all of that is narcissism. It's like, because now gaslighting is different, of course. You know what I mean? We could go down a whole other rabbit hole. We should probably not do this right now. But yes, like being transparent and
This
getting down
episode
with
will be
yourself.
4 hours long.
Exactly.
Buckle up, everybody.
Okay.
Welcome
So
to Kundalini Rising. There will
yes,
not be any more episodes. We have filled the season.
let's go through all the phases of awakening, warrior, princess, like all of these things that you go through. Like, anyways, so yes, okay, yeah, we're going to stay on track, and then I'll also divert from that track multiple times. So hopefully you enjoy the wild ride. Okay, so the next question is, what has the essence and transformative power of Kundalini brought into your life?
Ooh, we really should have recorded before we started recording, because I actually touched base on this.
I feel like you did. Yeah, I feel like you're kind of coming back around.
During my pre-awakening time, the mental struggle that I had, PTSD, CPTSD, anxiety, depression, undiagnosed ADHD and autism that I, had no idea about. And being a channel and not knowing what energetic boundaries were, I felt everything all the time. And it got to the point where I literally could not leave my house. I went through 2 separate bouts of agoraphobia where I spent upwards of 11 months in my house. One time was just shy of 11 months, and one was just over 11 months. And I was actually saying to Tori before we got on, it was to the point where like I would go to take my garbage outside, and just to take my garbage through the backyard and put it in the dumpster and turn around and come back into my house was like a 25-minute process, because I would just stare at the door and not know why I couldn't go outside. And this awakening for me has literally changed my entire life. I was on 15 different medications for anxiety, depression, CPTSD, all the rest of it. And none of it was helping. I was sleeping 19 hours a day, and the psychiatrist was like, let's increase your medication because it's not working. And I'm like, when would you like me to actually be able to live my life? Because like I'm already sleeping for more than 3/4 of the day. Literally cannot keep my eyes open. And it was after I had my awakening and was taught through my guides about energetic boundaries, as well as, Jess Reed's podcast and Water Baby Tarot, many other people that I had seen on YouTube and other people in the collective. I really started to learn what was good for me, and realizing that like I had to be very, very diligent about putting up energetic boundaries. And the moment that I started connecting and putting up energetic boundaries, 80% of all of the anxiety and everything just disappeared.
That's beautiful.
I started
I'm
to
a little
crave
envious
going
of
outside.
I'm a little envious. I just want to throw that out there. I like to put my shadow sometimes out there and not put it on anybody, but like say, hey, a little envious that like you got to find Jessa and Water Baby Tarot during, you know what I mean? Like everybody's awakening is a little bit different. So if you
My
don't know
stepmom,
who Jessa Reed is yet, you know what I mean? Soberish podcast
yeah,
is a very good insight onto what the collective is up to, what it's gone through, things like that. And just all of those resources that you might find in these episodes are very valuable for anybody. So of course, if something sounds like it's, you know how to follow your rabbit hole, hopefully, and if you don't, then just start utilizing them all and see what resonates.
it's pretty awesome to listen to
Yeah,
her podcast and be like, holy crap, holy crap, holy crap, holy
yeah,
crap.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
it was
remember
actually,
that.
it was my stepmom, because in December of 2019, like I got together with my family for Christmas, and I'm pretty sure that my stepmom could just like tell I was on the brink of death. Like I was so ready to not be alive anymore. I was very, very, very close. Around that time frame, I had been like in an overnight facility because I was worried about committing suicide, but because I had contacted the hospital was not in fear of my life, and told me that they don't think that I need to stay there, but that I could go to this other place if I felt I needed it. So then my stepmom told me about Jessa Reed's podcast, and like everything really started to change. I was still in group therapy at this point. Let's like, tell an agoraphobic to sit in a room full of people to talk about your problems.
God,
And somebody
I
who
couldn't
has
imagine. Like,
extreme social anxiety at this point can't even look people in the eyes, and they want me to sit in a room and talk about my problems in front of people, and I'm
yeah,
trying to tell them how much this isn't going to work for me. And then thankfully COVID happened and we were locked in our houses.
yeah, no, I had tears in my eyes
Yeah,
just from you, even though it was the second time that I've heard you talk about staring at the door to take your trash out. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
even that is like, I could feel like, you know what I mean? Like the rawness of that. And
it's
it just,
so much.
that's why, but that's why your experience is because you could handle it and you were the warrior meant to strive through that. You know what I mean? Like it's just like, you know, like psychosis, agoraphobia, whatever it is, we can keep coming back to each of our own examples. And it's, you know what I mean? Like they're mind blowing at
Yeah,
what we go through in this awakening process. I love hearing it. I absolutely love hearing it. And I think that this is one of the reasons also why I love Kundalini Rising and why I love this series that I've been gifted to put out here is because like I don't think that I've really heard somebody's story as much as I have on this level of frequency. I don't really know what it's telling me at this point, but like since I found Jessa and Lacey and P and you know what I mean, like all of those and like listen to their stories and you know like really and because after that it became about community and the community right now like you know like people get to know each other slowly like we've gotten to know each other, but it's not like you're not I haven't even shared my full story, you know what I mean, with people. And so why would you know what I mean? It's a very slow like trust process to come through. And so like being able to hear this from you today, I'm just very honored and I'm very grateful that you came on here to talk about this because this is something that people need to hear about. I mean, I think the only
yeah,
other person's story that I've really heard is Seraphina's and where she
right.
was blind for a year. You know what I mean? Like it's stories like that that I want to hear because those are things that everybody else is going to start going through like and they're not
Yeah.
going to have you know what I mean like they're going to have the answers because we have the answers and because of what we've been through and what we're channeling and things like that, but it's going to start happening and it's going to start you know what I mean like
But
and so
if
to
we're
get
not
these out
willing to
there is
be
important.
open and we're not willing
Exactly.
to share, because trust me, talking about some of this stuff, it's not easy. I mean, like you're sitting here saying like I am clinically insane, because if you want to go off of all of the crap that they've written in psychology, talking about hearing people's voices in your mind while you're like telling people their present and future, as well as helping them through their past and their shadow work, and just picking out things that, I shouldn't know, lots of people would call that crazy, especially if I start talking about how I'm channeling galactic beings and, aliens. Yeah.
And that's why, I mean, the awakening is a safe path. I do want to put that disclaimer. It doesn't feel safe at first because of what's going on in your mind or whatever the hell is going on.
But you will quickly find your tribe. And with
That
with that said, like you also have to understand that this shift, it can feel lonely in the middle of it, because people who no longer resonate with you will fall away from you, and it will happen very quick.
That's just very natural. But I know in my experience that I was aligned with all of the appropriate psychiatrists and therapists. And there was
Yep.
one part where I had a very selfish therapist. Like, she literally, when she found out what I had been through, in one part of my life, she became more interested in my abuser than treating me. Like, literally was like, why do you think he did that to you? I'm very interested. And I'm like she spoke those words to me. And I was like, this is highly inappropriate. And I went
Gross.
back for one more session because maybe, you know what I
To
mean, just
fire
to
her? No.
pretty well, pretty, the universe kind of did it for me.
Good.
So yeah, but that wasn't until after I'd had a few therapists and really, like, I was at that point where I had to stand up for myself and know what was right and what was wrong, and trust that feeling internally. And so there was a lesson in that. There was, how is this working for
Absolutely.
my good? And then right after
It
that, I
was an
found the best.
opportunity for you to
Yes.
stand up for yourself, realizing and recognizing my boundaries are being crossed right now, and I'm going to put a stop to it.
Exactly. And that professionals do that, and that we do have the ability to say no and move on. And I always say, like, if I am just like a job interview, if I'm going to a doctor's office, I don't care if it's a surgeon, medical, dentist, whatever it is, I am interviewing that individual to take care of me. You know what I mean? And I get to choose if that person treats me or if they don't. And I have to make that choice. I can't just go along with it because, oh, it's a doctor. You know what I mean? And there's other places in the world that don't get that opportunity. But, I'm interviewing them and I'm choosing on whether or not I want to stay with them or not. By the way that they treat me, by the way that they listen, allow me to express my intuition and express my holistic avenues, and are willing to work. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many, oh my gosh, so many things that we learn, so
There
many
are
things
so
that we learn how to
many.
do. So
We
I
like
didn't mean, but yeah, we
physically
keep,
cannot put it into one podcast, like how
no,
many things.
no,
Like
that's why we're gonna have
you and
series.
I literally, I was going to say, you and I could literally do a whole series on like things to expect from an awakening.
Yes. Oh
Like,
my gosh. There is absolutely, and we could definitely bounce off of each other
episode
because there's so,
1079.
yes.
Like,
Yep. Exactly. All right. So what has the essence and transformative power? We just did that one.
we did.
What was your biggest battle within? If you have a couple, don't feel you have to limit it to one.
Well, definitely just like a little bit of repeating of what I was saying before. It was like self-confidence was a huge one. Um, and then abandonment was my other really big wound that has followed me throughout my entire life. My dad left when I was 6. Then my brother, who was my best friend throughout the first part of my childhood, became abusive due to his anger and rage that he didn't put out in a decent way. So me and my little brother became his punching bags. Um, and then I lost my brother again when he was kicked out of the house at 16. I went through multiple like breakups. I abandoned myself over and over and over and over again in codependency. And it just was one of those things where those two things about self-confidence, which just for me encompasses self-love, self-worth, just the knowledge that like I am worthy of everything that I desire. And yeah, that abandonment wound. Those are the really two big ones for me.
Well, and it's interesting that you bring up abandonment, because abandonment is actually a collective wound, because from the
Yes.
moment that we come out of the womb and we're separated from source, it's just that's what it actually, that's my
I,
understanding of it,
I
is that it
had,
feeds back to that. Because I mean, we
I,
all have abandonment wounds from, and some of them are less extreme than, what you have experienced, or, the same type of extremity. There's no comparison, because trauma is
what is
trauma.
my worst is my worst, and what is your worst, and you are going to feel like absolute crap
Exactly.
about your worst, and I'm going to feel about absolute crap about my
And no
worst,
one
and
can
there
tell you
is
that they're
no
comparable.
equating.
Exactly. Yeah, there's
Yeah.
no comparison. That judgment of, oh, well, your trauma is worse than mine. I hate when
You
I hear
stubbed your
that, because it's
toe and
like,
I broke my leg. You know
it,
what? Pain is
it,
freaking pain.
especially if it does create a psychological trauma. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's a very different pain in that aspect. But when somebody talks about
You
like
weren't
we're
abused
built,
for as long as I was.
yes, yeah, and we were built for certain types of trauma. You know what I mean? Like, and I hate to say that in that way. There's a whole rabbit hole to go down with that, and I mean that in a very spiritual way. In the way that we journey through that warrior phase and stuff like that. But yes, one of the collective wounds that I have seen is abandonment
Yes.
because of that separation from source, from God,
I
from whatever it is,
actually,
and then it reflects in our relationships to where, you know, it forms more abandonment, because what happens is when we are disconnected from source coming out of the womb, we then begin to make our parents our higher power. They then become our gods and our brothers and our sisters, because that's why we look for them, because you know they're raising us, they're teaching us all of these things, and so psychologically we begin to make them our higher power, not realizing that holy crap, they are separate from us. You know, they're like, I'm my own, you know, because we have
yes.
God all
I
seeing, all
love
knowing.
that you
Like,
said that. I
yeah,
am my own.
it's all its own
I
rabbit hole,
I
of
had
course. A
so
million rabbit holes.
this thing with abandonment, it came about in some energetic healing, um where I basically saw myself as the universe holding a baby, and I was looking down at that baby in just pure unconditional love, and then all of a sudden my visual split, and I could see myself looking at the baby, and I could see myself as the baby looking up at me,
I love that.
and it became that figure eight of infinity, that we are not separate, that we are the mother, that we are the child, we are the dad and the child, we are the parent and the child. We
And that
are everything. And then on a spiritual level, with this abandonment, is that like we come here to live this magnificent life because we're told that like we're creating heaven on earth and everything's going to be so great. And then
yes.
we come here and it's like this.
And
And
we
we're like,
know that,
excuse
yeah.
me. And we
Yep.
feel duped in that moment. We feel abandoned in that moment. How could you leave me here? How
Because
could you leave me here? Right?
we
Because we
forget
forget.
what we're here to do. Yes. And that's
Exactly.
yes, that's that abandonment wound.
But
And then
then when you take that spiritually and you're holding yourself in a moment of fear, remember that you are the universe holding yourself as a baby. You are
exactly.
so safe. You are so secure. You are
And it's
so
like
loved.
we go through stages of what our higher self is, and we don't realize that we do that psychologically. So this is, you know, maybe hopefully bringing some awareness to some people that listen to this, because you know, our parents do become our higher selves because we look for their approval. We do things to approve of them. We play sports. Might even play the same sports that they want us to play. We don't really make decisions for ourselves, and therefore they become our higher power. And then when we start to break away from them, when we awaken, or we're healing generational trauma, or we're acknowledging that their behaviors might not have been the healthiest, you know what I mean? You know, that's why religion did serve a purpose, because it gave a higher power outside of the family. So it helped reduce that type of attachment. You know what I mean? Like that's the only, like that's, it's not the only purpose that it served, but it is a purpose that I see that it served, because I mean, God is real. Like there's no ifs, ands, and buts about it. It's a matter of, you
The
know,
name that you attach to it,
exactly.
source,
Yeah. Yeah.
universe.
What, and they're all interchangeable. I mean,
Exactly.
but the religion aspect of it is the patriarchy aspect. Da, 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 da. Anyways, so yeah, but making our parents our higher powers is something that does have to be broken, and we break that in the boundaries and the shadow work and in the generational trauma healing, and in the way that we go to therapy now and talk about, you know, like what wasn't maybe so healthy that our parents, you know, put us through, and we activate that
Yeah.
change in our parents
Well,
because our
and
parents did it with their parents and their parents did it with their parents. Like it's just, we know that there's a higher power. Our deepest knowing is that there's a higher power of creation, and we seek that higher power. And you know, when we're young, we just don't have the remembrance, or you know, and I think there's going to be more and more people born with remembrance now on some level,
I believe
maybe
so
not the
too.
fullest rawest, but
I
they're going to
mean,
have a
children
better
these days are
understanding.
so awake, it's ridiculous.
Yes.
Like they blow my mind.
Yes. Yeah.
Actually, it's really cool because like as we're talking about this, like we placed an authority outside of ourselves, and like this whole awakening like allows us to have that authority be within ourselves. A whole aspect of the shadow work course that I do is inner child healing, and
Yes.
talking about like when you have those moments like trigger that come up in your mind space and you're vividly remembering something, sometimes that's coming up for a reason. Like sometimes your inner child is triggered in that moment. And instead of shoving down that memory, I don't want to think about that right now. You can say, how can I assist you? Like I can see you, I feel you. That moment in time, because time is not linear, it's a spiral, is simultaneously happening and not happening because also our present moment is the only real thing, the only tangible thing. This past part of you that is like a memory is a loop pattern that is playing.
Hmm.
Something
Yes.
happened in that moment that is causing this trigger to loop and to pattern. So you can only walk down this path. You're stuck on it. You're walking around in circles. And when you address this moment in childhood, you say, hello, like, what can I do for you? And they tell you, I'm being yelled at by my parent right now and I'm, being shamed and guilted.
Yes.
You get to step in and be the hero that you needed in that moment. You get to be the parent to parent your child in the way that you needed in that moment. If you were getting in trouble for something, you can explain this could have been dangerous, like maybe tell them that like you could have been hurt, but the way that they're reacting right now is not your fault, and I don't want you to take that upon you because they don't know that what they're doing is harming you because they were treated this way in their
Yes.
childhood. And you
Yes.
can explain to them in that moment. And then you can take your inner child from that moment and bring them with you somewhere safe. Literally just imagine it. Take them out of that
Yes.
space, take them out of that room. Look back at that room and show them now that the parent is yelling at nothing. Empty space. They don't need to take that on.
And one
They're
of the
here
other
now.
things that you can do in that aspect is there's been plenty of times that, that has come up and I am overwhelmed. I'm in the middle of something that really needs my attention, so I can't give it attention. Like your higher self, your inner self, yourself just wants communication. So you can literally
Yes.
say, I see this, but I do need to process this at a later time. Could you bring that back for me? And like literally when I'm sitting on my couch, it'll bring it back for me when I'm in a
Yep.
safe space to be able to handle it. It's all about communication with the self. It's all about just saying, I
Validation.
acknowledge you. I
I
see you
see you.
there and I
Yep.
don't want to run from this. I also need a little bit more time.
Yep.
So, and that's also what I got from that image that you were talking about with with you holding yourself as a baby is it's all that reparenting cycle where we get to come in and reparent
And
ourselves,
how
but
cool is
again,
it
bring that
that in
higher
that
self with.
galactic regression, I went to a
Yes.
planet where the learning modality of that planet wasn't the masculine versus feminine that we have on this planet. It was the parent-child aspect.
Yeah, I love that. I absolutely love that. That opens up, the infinity even more in our understanding of the universe. Okay, all right. So the Kundalini leaves us with a glow. Lilith always leaves her mark. What is yours?
It's so funny because I don't even know if like I have like a physical mark or anything like that, but I know like when the Kundalini energy is in my body, I like, especially when I'm grounding down for readings, I am so energetically sensitive that when I ask the energy to leave my body, I will slump over in my meditation. I will feel my body get tired and like crinkle because the energy is gone. And then when I ask for the energy that is mine, that is going to serve my highest and greatest good, I feel it come up like my roots. And as soon as it gets to my bottom, my tailbone, I will start to like swirl because I
Yeah, some
can
somatic
feel
movement.
I can
Yes.
feel the energy like twirling
Yes.
around my chakras. And then when
Yeah.
it gets to my crown chakra just opens up so wide. And
Yes.
it's like I am that like etheric tree, which I have been told in readings before that I'm like bridge energy, that I'm like an etheric tree, that I have not just earth energy or astral energy, but I have etheric energy. So I am like the in between. And so I really like resonate with the roots connecting to Gaia, with me being the trunk, and then my crown opening up to source as like the leaves pointing and looking and sucking in all that solar energy that is good for us.
Well, that's all of us though. Like we're each a tree of life. We're each a
Hmm.
Sephiro. We each have Chokmah and Binah and Keter and all of those abilities within us. And the
Yeah.
bottom of the tree of life is the grounding into the earth and the material plane. And then the higher parts, the leaves, the reaching out, the crown, that is, the Keter and the Binah and the Chokmah. And, there's a couple other ones that I can't quite think of off the top of my head, but those are all in the Kabbalah. And that's very much like the grid work of the tree of life and what it symbolizes. It's absolutely beautiful if you haven't gotten a chance to look at it. And that's where Jessica comes in and talks about the Taurus. Like, we're each a Taurus because we're each a tree of life. And you know what I mean? Like, we are the fifth element. We are the ether. And that's why earth, wind, fire, and earth, wind, fire, and water. I was like, I was about to say air for the second time for some reason. Earth, wind, fire, and air. Apparently we're on some other planet. But earth, wind, fire, and water, you know what I mean? Like, those are the four around us. We make up the fifth. We are that fifth, the fifth point on the pentagram. We are, all of those things. It's beautiful. It's absolutely amazing. Um, did you have anything to say else on that? Like, I know that
Yeah,
when I say,
the only other thing is that like when I like feel like the Kundalini energy like within me, like lots of times like I get goosebumps. It like comes in my face a lot, like right here. It'll go down the sides of my face, like down each of my arms, and then in my thighs a lot too. And when I've been connected for a really long time, my body just vibrates because I can like feel the energy inside of me, and like even grounding down, like I'll still vibrate, and it's pretty intense, but yeah,
well,
so.
I'd love to offer that one of the ways that I see the Kundalini leaving you with a glow is in your light language. I think I mean, and I could be completely wrong, but that is something that you know what I mean? Like, to go through the agoraphobia, to harness things like that is one of your most prominent things. Like, your art is phenomenal no matter what, but being able to channel such an intricate language to earthlings, you know what I mean? Like, and to just, it feels, and maybe it's because it's not something that I tap into, you know what I mean, that it feels so intricate, but it also feels like the work that you did that was
And
so intricate
maybe
that, that's the
I was gonna
frequency, of
say
course.
maybe that's why I didn't even connect to it, because it feels so natural for me.
There you go. Yep.
Yeah.
And I mean, the Kundalini's within us. It activates everything that is natural, you know what I mean? But we each have that, we're all one, we all have the same abilities at the end of the day, but at the same time, like, to conjoin to all one, we each have to have that uniqueness that we're kind of like bringing in. Um,
Exactly.
All right, so the last question. What deep soul connections occurred during the Kundalini or around it?
Oh, I have been blessed with many, many, many deep soul connections. I resonate with like 40 people in the collective, like Jessa's collective, that broke off into Awakening Orientation Department and then broke off into AOD 2.0. And like, there's like
Yes.
40 people that like I still keep in solid contact with. You're on that list. My friend Sarah's on that list. Shannon's on that list. Like, there are just so many people that are on that list that I'm just like, I absolutely am supposed to know you. Even
Yes.
where I'm living now, my roommates and stuff, like when I first got here, it was so funny. Everyone's like, are you sure? Are you sure? Because we had been talking on the phone for over a year. We've never met each other in person.
Okay. Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that your living situation, you went through some rough stuff, and that was hard. And I know
Yeah,
that
that
where
was
you are
like
now is
prior.
like
Yeah.
super magical. So I know
Yeah.
that, like, I know that what you went through, totally worth it. It's just I didn't know the full story behind it, and that
Yeah.
you had that connection. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
after my relationship ended, like I basically had, you know, a few months to like find a place to live because our lease was ending, and I had a place to go, and then all of a sudden it fell through 3 weeks before I was supposed to go. So now I'm like, all right, universe, what's happening? So then I was shifted up to Crossfield because this person was like, come up here, I'll help you, blah, 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 like all this stuff. I got there, they basically disappeared, leaving me high and dry. Like, I have many food allergies and I was not getting the nutrients that I needed there. And so I was actually like slowly dying. Like I would stand up and literally almost pass out. I was so nutrient deficient. It was not okay. And my friend who lives here, we had been talking for over a year, and she's like, this is not happening. Like, leave now. Like, you're coming here. I don't even care. Like, you're just moving in. And within the first week, all of us, there are 4 other adults in this house. There are 7 animals in total. And within the first week, every one of us were like, it was like I slid into place, like the last like little puzzle piece that just needed to boop and just fit in so nicely. Like, it was pretty crazy. And we're just like, wow, this was really meant to be.
Well, when you said slid into place, I saw you as a snake in alchemy, just like moving into your space. It was
That's right.
beautiful. Yes, yes, conquering the world
Oh, I
one
love
soul at a time.
it.
All right. Well, that is our episode of Kundalini Rising number 1. I know the rest will be just as exciting and as inhibiting. But let's give it up for Jess, because I am so grateful and so honored. So many deep parts of her story are soul moving and emotionally moving as well. Jess, could you please let everybody know where they can find you so they can connect with you on any level that they feel called to?
Absolutely. You can find me either on my Instagram at jet.artworks, or you can find me through my website, jetartworks.space. I'm also on TikTok at Jess Walker 25.
I love that. And if you feel like the Kundalini resonates with you, please hit me up at hermeticallyspeaking at icloud.com or go to hermeticallyspeaking.com. That's where you can always find me. Thank you guys so much for honoring Jess and I and listening to this very long but very wonderful podcast. There is no doubt about that. We are divine creatrixes and we are amazing just as you are. So please remember to stay tuned for future episodes and follow us both. Thanks so much.